everyone. My name is Megan Conahan. I'm EVP here at Direct Agents, and we have three really, really amazing sessions for you today. Just to note, if you do have any questions, we're going to save all the questions to the end, but please feel free to chat them using the little chat box, hopefully on the right-hand side, and we can answer them at the end, or we'll save questions, so I'll prompt you at the end as well. Just so you guys know, this is our Direct Agents Holiday Planning Playbook, How to Master Q4 with Direct Agents. And if you're not familiar with Direct Agents, just a little bit on us. We are a 20-year-old independent, minority-owned digital marketing agency. And what we specialize in, what we just do really, really well is driving sales, growth, and profitability online and on Amazon and other marketplaces. So this is our 20th Q4, which is really hard to believe. And we're really, really excited about talking to you guys about how to prepare for the success of this Q4, because it's going to be a little bit different like the last few years, I think, have been. So like I said, we have 3 sessions to get to. I really want to jump in right now because we have a ton to cover. We're going to start mostly with the new ways holiday shoppers are consuming, essentially going into October, November, and December. But before we jump into that discussion, I want to introduce my co-panelists, Monica and Corey. Could you guys quickly introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure. My name is Corey Levine. I'm the VP of Integrated Media here at Direct Agents, and I'm really excited to be here to talk to you all today.
And I'm Monica. I am the Director of Growth Strategy, and I am also really pumped to talk to you all today.
So much excitement. I'm excited too. Okay, so we're going to talk about some of the pivots brands need to make for Q4. But before we do so, we also want to really set the stage on what to expect this holiday season, because we don't want to just jump into some of the tactical things. We really want to show you what's going on more of a macro level. So overall, 2022 has not been the rosiest picture, right? We have seen record inflation that's really hampered spending, and it's just caused a lot of fear for consumers about the economy and a possible recession, and just overall their economic well-being. But if you are looking and following and tracking things right now, things are starting to really look up, right? Inflation has gone down. The Federal Reserve said that we're no longer expecting a recession, which is great news. And consumers are increasingly optimistic. In fact, this is the most optimistic that they've felt since 2021, which is really, really exciting to see. And this optimism is really creeping into consumer spending. So this year's Q4 is supposed to grow. I think it's like a little bit shy of 5% year over year. And if we look at Prime Day, which just happened, which has historically been very correlated with Q4, we see a really similar trend, right? Prime Day growth is very correlated with Q4 growth, and Prime Day growth was up about 6% year over year. So what that means is that the US is really predicted to have more of a record-breaking holiday season this year. And in fact, when you look at when you ask actually consumers, about 1/3 say that they're expecting to spend even more on holiday gifts this year than they are last year. But while consumers are spending more, and we are setting ourselves for a record-breaking Q4, I don't want to paint it as like this amazing, picturesque unicorns and puppies and all of that, right? Consumers are still really cost conscious. They spent the better half of the last year, 2023, preparing for a recession, worrying about their own economic circumstances, and those concerns, they just don't fade overnight, right? So consumers are still very much in this like recessionary mindset, even though they're still spending. And when consumers are asked what would encourage them to buy this year from a new brand or .com, the 4 things that they talked about were better price, free delivery, fast and convenient delivery, and then free returns. So price really is still number 1 top of mind, beating the other ones pretty substantially, but the other 3 shouldn't be ignored as well. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And we saw a really similar trend with Prime Day, right? If you are selling on Amazon, one of the things that we really saw is that more than half of consumers compared your Amazon Prime deals with Walmart and Target just to make sure that they got the best price. And more on top of that is that consumers are really increasingly leaning into more flexible payment options. So buy now, pay later has been something that has been growing over the past few years, but it has increasingly grown. In fact, the CEO of PayPal said that first time use of buy now, pay later is up 25 to 30%. So not only are more transactions happening using buy now, pay later, but more consumers are using it for the very first time as we continue to look for more payment flexibility. So that's where we are at the moment. So we really want to talk to you about more how to tackle that. So I'm going to turn to Corey and Monica and talk you through kind of some of those things that we have in mind right now. So Monica, I want to start with you. So can you talk to me a little bit about how brands can take advantage of this new buying behavior for Q4? Specifically, how can a brand or a marketer pivot their mindset for how they're interacting with this customer who's spending but still has that recessionary mindset?
Yeah, absolutely, Megan. So as mentioned, I think the most interesting thing that we've seen is that consumer mindsets have really changed. We're going into this era of and versus this or that. And what that really means is that the mindset is shifting. You know, people don't believe in depriving themselves of simple luxuries, right? Because what they've noticed is that, you know, tomorrow isn't promised. Anything could happen. So really, this and era is what we call being stingy, but also being splurgy. Being stingy in the way is cutting back on basics, right? Maybe not taking that Uber home and opting for the train, or instead of ordering takeout, you know, cooking dinner, right? Cutting back on minimal expenses to save up for those big purchases, right? So being able to enjoy those luxuries in terms of rewarding yourself and not depriving yourself. So really, marketers should be thinking about this in the way that, yes, consumers have pulled back on some spending, but they are still willing to spend.
And for you, how do you think that this affects maybe how brands should think about like gift guides or like different promotions that they should run? Do you have any thoughts on some of those things?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that what I've seen work really well is providing some sort of gift card after a purchase, right? So self-gifting has really seen an increase over the last few years. So offering some sort of reward, you know, you spend 50, you get $10 back. So people are they want to purchase something for maybe a friend or a family member, but then they also get a reward in return that they can spend at a later time.
Okay, that's really helpful. Yeah, and like you said, I think a lot of brands are maybe like rethinking, or we're talking to our brands about rethinking gift guides, more gifts for you, smaller, affordable luxuries, maybe thinking about things that are like, you know, high profit margin that could really be something that somebody could treat themselves with, but then also obviously find gifts for their loved ones. So that's more the mindset. I do want to pivot to media a little bit. So Corey, I'm going to turn it to you as my like resident media guru. How is this year different in how brands should approach media, right? How do you have to treat your media mix, your media plan, KPIs? How do you have to treat that differently this year?
Oh man, all right. Lots of good questions there. And I think we're going to try and touch on a bunch of them. And for anybody attending, if we don't get to one of those specific questions, please always feel free to reach out. While there will and should be nuances, the first thing I'll say right to every plan is there are a few key pillars that we feel that every brand should be following. The good news is if you are here today, you're actually already ahead of the game by kicking off the conversation now. And so we're going to walk through those 5 key areas and what brands should focus on. And so of those 5 areas, top line, because we're going to get to each one on the subsequent slides, is to start discussing realistic goals and KPIs, align on your customer strategy, use the proper media mix, decide how you're going to stand out, and optimize your consumer journey. So let's go through these as best as possible. So the first one, all about discussing realistic goals and KPIs. For anybody listening thinking we already have the media KPIs, This is more about looking at that business objective and figuring out how much revenue, how many subscribers do you need as a macro business, and aligning with your agency at how much paid media is supposed to contribute to that overall pie. ROAS goals, CPA goals are great, but we also need to balance that efficiency with volume. And so making sure it's very clear to your agency the amount of volume needed is going to set you and them up for success this holiday season. The next is about customer strategy. What is the mix between new customer acquisition and retention, repeat customers, people that have purchased from your brand last holiday season or even throughout this year? A lot of times we noticed throughout the year, the focus is acquiring new customers. But we can't forget that holiday time is a prime example of when you also need to play defense. Everyone is shopping, and if they're not buying from you, they're buying from someone else. So make sure that there is a healthy mix between new customers and retention. Once you've been able to figure that out, it's really important to use the data that you already have acquired over the year and from past holiday seasons to ensure an optimized media mix. Now, we want to make sure your direct response workhorse channels are properly funded and also are able to capitalize on the market opportunity generated from the holiday. This could be different for many brands. Maybe one is search, maybe others see it in social, display, but the idea really here is get that optimal media mix. Here at DA, we're using a mixture of historical data, our MMM models, and a few other tools in our arsenal to really ensure that our clients have that proper media mix, because you don't want to be thinking about that last minute and shoveling budget. And then the next is remember to feed the funnel. Start building awareness for your service and products now. Customers they're starting their research earlier and earlier. And if you're waiting to just show a direct response ad during the holiday season, you're not going to see as high conversion rates and as efficient media as you will if you start using channels like CTV, audio, even potentially digital out of home, whatever makes sense for your brand, and feed that funnel and become part of that consideration set. And so on the very bottom, before we go to the next slide, this is almost like an example timeline of what you could potentially look to do this season. So start planning now, really work on those expansion channels, feeding the funnel, start testing different types of audience data and et cetera. Now, that way come end of October, November, you could hit the ground running and really capitalize on the shoppers. And so while that's a lot, many people might be asking, what does this potentially look like? So this is an example of a flighting strategy that we have rolled out for one of our clients as we approach the second half of this year. And so as you can see here, we're really focused on those expansion channels in August, September, and then it starts tapering off in October, and we just flip it. We flip it right into in October, November, and December, those performance media channels are now getting the bulk of that media. But you'll notice that we haven't just decided to axe all that upper funnel expansion channel. Continue to keep the light on and be top of mind as those users are going through their own consumer purchase journeys.
Corey, I have a question for you. So for brands who have historically just invested in the duopoly, being Google and Meta, what are the channels you think would be the most top of mind based on consumer behavior and performance that you've seen? Like, what would be the top 1, top 2, top 3 that you would recommend testing for an e-commerce brand really trying to drive sales velocity going into Q4?
Yeah, I think we can't undermine the power of connected TV. The landscape has shifted, and also with connected TV, even as there's a lot of retail media networks that are tapping into data to be even able to target on these devices, and we have a lot of great content, and people are streaming at the second half of this year. So I would say, to me, the number one channel when you're thinking about an expansion right now could be CTV, both from a targeting perspective, a consumer behavior perspective, and also a lot of people hear CTV, they just think upper funnel. There are so many interactive ad units now. You could be on Roku and you see an ad and you press OK, and it takes you directly to a purchase page. So don't just assume it's awareness. Start testing its direct response capabilities today and see if it makes sense to keep. And then honestly, yes, we all want to diversify our media mix, but people are going, as marketers, we still have to go to where the eyeballs are. People are going to Meta, they're going to YouTube, they're going to Google, they're going to TikTok. I mean, these are channels that, yes, we all want to diversify, but if you're working with limited budget, I would really focus on that performance as well.
Yeah, and there's some really interesting stats that came out saying CTV and social media have the highest ad recall, and people really lean on those channels for awareness of brands that could really make a huge impact. And to your point, CTV, if you're not attributing it, then there's something wrong there. You should be able to connect that back to your full funnel 100%. The other thing I wanted to get more data from you on is you had a really interesting point about like acquisition versus retention. But one of the things I know a lot of our brands see is that your Q4 customer is very different than your Q1 through Q3 customer, right? It can be Q1 through Q3 is whatever, bunch of women, and then Q4 you have a heavy subset of men. So how are you thinking about brands using their first party data to acquire? Are you saying, hey, you should still use your full arsenal of your CRM? Are you thinking about, just really leaning into who bought last year in Q4? Like how should brands be thinking about that?
Yeah, I think brands should really be leveraging, if you have a DMP, I would heavily advise looking at your audience data and what you're seeing. If you don't have a DMP, maybe working with your agency to import that first party data into potentially DSP platforms that have some audience information. But I think it's a healthy mixture of all of it. I mean, your first party data is everything. So I would advise you look at who your customer is throughout the year, and also add that lens of what has happened last holiday season, the holiday season before. Find out what that delta is. How different is that audience? Does it warrant its own strategy? Do you have the budget in your funds to afford a different strategy and really over segment the users? We're living in a world now where I don't want to just say broad targeting. Personally, I don't necessarily believe in that, but I think the broader targeting is the key versus more niche targeting, like we're all used to. So over segmenting your audience, with everything we're seeing, I don't necessarily think is the ideal way, but I think leveraging a healthy mix of that first party data, make data driven decisions on what that holiday shopper audience looks like. That should be the first place you go. From there, you can then leverage even that information for lookalikes, or you can then go ahead and just expand out to more second party powerful data and intent holiday shoppers that a lot of these partners have. So I would say, Megan, there's not a blanket, percentage between these, but I think if I was doing it, that would be the exact process that I would follow in order to come to a decision of what I need to prioritize with my investment.
Okay. Yeah, there's nothing I hate more than, I think last year I bought like a gift for a friend who had a cat, and then I got retargeted with cat ads. I'm like, I don't have a cat. Like, this was a present. But I think to your point, there's so many variables that go into it. And nothing against cat owners. I love them. They're lovely. Okay, so I want to pivot to messaging, because I think messaging is another really big portion of this. There's so many stats that say messaging and creative is such a huge portion of why consumers interact with an ad, why somebody would stop and consider a new brand, et cetera. So, Corey, obviously, messaging is really important, but consumers are also really price sensitive. So how do you pivot your messaging so that you can capture demand, but you can still really be sensitive to this like recessionary mindset?
Yeah. So before I answer that, I want to emphasize one thing, Megan, you said. We cannot underestimate the power of creative. You could have the optimal media mix. You could do all the right stuff with the data that we just discussed. You could flight your budgets. You could place your ads perfectly. If your creative falls flat, if it doesn't make your brand stand out, no one's going to click through. And when that happens, that's when you're going to see detrimental effects for the rest of your year. So really, yes, put an emphasis on media and marketing, but put as if an equal, if not more of an emphasis on what messaging those users are going to be seeing. Every year, competition gets more and more fierce, more and more businesses pop up. I don't have stats that show that ones that go under versus come up, but it just keeps getting more and more competitive, and people are using more and more ads to help their business. So you really have to stick out through the clutter. I think one thing to call out is, Megan, so customers are price sensitive. Everybody wants free shipping. Any brand listening, assume that every one of your competitors is going to be having a promo. They're going to be having good pricing, and they're going to be touting free shipping or shipping at a certain threshold. Like, assume that those are almost just like the first step that most brands and most consumers want to be seeing. I like to think about it from my aspect of if you're not offering it, you're off the consideration set. That's how price sensitive customers are right now. But then you get into that rabbit hole of, well, if everybody's saying the same messaging, how do you stand out from the clutter? And so here, this is where we kind of had some ideas about, early at like kind of building up that loyalty program, like using this like awareness media, this feeding of the funnel to not just get a consideration set, but actually entice people to sign up for some holiday loyalty program, something with you. Nike does a phenomenal job of this with their drops and all this stuff, this exclusive offers, right? And I think so on the right here, you can kind of see that what do consumers want? Like, let's listen to what consumers want. They are who we're going after. They want early access to sales, so they don't want to have to think too hard for holiday shopping. Like, they want to get it done easy and earlier. So early access to sales. Early access to new products. Is there a new product launch that by signing up they can get? And then you get them in that first party data pool. And even offers and recommendations tailored to personalization, making that user feel like this is a message for them. It's solving a problem that they are having. Or Megan, as you mentioned, you bought a product for a friend that's a cat person. Like, maybe they had a problem, or maybe there was something there that enticed you to think that'd be perfect for my friend. That's the kind of use pricing and shipping as almost if you need to have it. What else are you going to be doing? And I think I can't underestimate the power of a loyalty program and making consumers feel that their holiday shopping is going to be easier if they sign up with you.
Okay, great. I think that is really helpful. And to your point, I agree. If you're not running a promo, if you're not running free shipping, you are completely out of the consideration set for this Q4, unfortunately. Okay, so I would be a little bit remiss if we didn't talk about user experience. So we have but a part of an entire session on this. So we're not going to dive into too big of a detail, but we did really want to talk to everybody about mobile. And I know mobile is such a huge part of overall traffic, and so many brands are still not approaching mobile in the right way. So Monica, I just wanted you to talk through maybe some opportunities that marketers could take advantage of right now when you think about using mobile to your advantage in Q4.
Yeah, absolutely. And Megan, you hit the nail on the head. This isn't a new concept about mobile driving, sessions, driving revenue, but you would be surprised at how many brands have actually optimized their website for mobile traffic. When we look at the people that are buying items on smartphones, it's over 3/4 of the U.S. adult population. So making sure that you have a really good mobile experience should be your number one priority, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what you do on advertising. If you send someone to a site on their phone that isn't optimized to their liking, what they're used to, then they are going to bounce and probably go to a competitor. The only thing I do want to stress is that there is a difference between being mobile optimized and a mobile friendly site. A mobile friendly site being something that can be accessed from a mobile device, but what we want to stress is the necessity of actually having a mobile optimized experience, right? Something that people can use easily. It has all of the right features of block content, of how people are used to accessing content, and all of those things are only going to benefit you even outside of revenue, right? And you're going to see increased engagement, you're going to see lower bounce rates, and even search engines are going to take into consideration ranking your site higher than your competitors based on that mobile optimization. So again, I'm sure we sound like a broken record, nothing new here, but something that we really should continue to focus on as a top priority this season.
And then what about like social commerce? Can you talk to me a little bit about that? There are some really interesting, obviously it's not as big as maybe it is in China or some other countries, but social commerce is massive, right? And it's growing at a really substantial rate. In fact, 60% of consumers say they want to be able to transact and purchase a product at the same place that they discover our product. So like, how are you thinking about, or how are you talking to brands about enabling social commerce and starting to get that more into the mix?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the theme here is how do we provide the most frictionless customer journey, right? So we know that consumers are using their phones not only to search for products, but even on social media. That's where they're really discovering brands and making sure that they're able to easily make that purchase within whatever social platform that they're on, right? And that's something that is becoming popular across all age groups. You know, even those baby boomers, but really on the focus is on Gen Z and millennials. You know, 1 in 5 Gen Z and millennials are making those purchases right through their social media apps. So what should we focus on? Again, making sure that your handles and whatnot are set up to not only click through the product, but then make that purchase right there. Another thing that people are using, especially that younger generation, is chat features. So not only on your online site, right, through a chat bot, but Gen Z and millennials are even starting to use the direct message feature and are saying they prefer to send a message directly to the brand that they're purchasing for. You know, they might have some questions about sizes or shipping or whatnot, and they do enjoy using that feature and actually said it helped make them purchase a product. And then on top of that, also just like leveraging the reach of social platforms, as Corey mentioned, you know, eyeballs are all over, you know, Instagram, Meta. So really being able to leverage those and making sure that your brands are on those sites because that's where our consumers are.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, you know, it's where Gen Zs and millennials are starting to divide, even though it maybe isn't a huge portion of your overall traffic. It is important. You should start enabling social commerce and native checkout within social commerce, which is going to be required probably in the very near future. So it'll be just another place where you can transact and interact with brands. So thank you so much. And if you have any questions about social commerce, obviously feel free to reach out. But thank you guys so much for this interesting insight. So I want to pivot from this more macro conversation about how to pivot from Q4 and invite on Allison and Bridget from our marketplace team to talk to me about thinking outside the box with Amazon. Hello. Hi. Okay, so Bridget and Ali, before we jump in, can you quickly intro yourselves?
Yeah, hi, I'm Bridget Menny. I'm a client success manager here at Direct Agents on our e-commerce team, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you all.
Hi, I'm Allison Ng. I'm a senior growth strategist at Direct Agents, and I'm excited to share some Amazon strategies.
Great. So we just talked a lot about how marketers should approach like their overall holiday season more broadly. Now I want to talk more about Amazon and retail media as a statement, but really we're gonna really hone in on Amazon here. Just a note for anybody who's tuning in, there are a lot of best practices that we're really hoping most people are already implementing, things like day parting and conducting product mix analysis, gifting strategies, updates to your SEO. Those we were thinking about going through all of this, but frankly, they feel a little bit like table stakes to us. Of course, if you want to talk through them and you want more detail and you're like, hey, I actually don't know how to do a product mix analysis, please feel free to email us, marketing@directagents.com. We could send you best practices, a bunch of guides, all of that stuff. What we really wanted to talk through today are just some less used tactics that are really, really impactful and things that we have started implementing for our brands that have really made massive differences and can really set you apart on Amazon, especially as Amazon becomes just hyper competitive. Okay, so the first one I want to talk about is sending outside traffic to Amazon. So Bridget, can you just talk with me quickly about, you know, why would a brand send outside traffic to Amazon? What are some of the strategies that we've implemented? What are the benefits? Can you just go over that with me?
Yeah, of course. There are a ton of game-changing benefits of driving outside traffic directly to Amazon. Amazon loves when sellers are doing this for them. It's bringing new shoppers to their site for free. So with that comes a few perks. First, want to chat through this example. This is a client that we currently have that was launching a brand new brand and product on Amazon, and we decided to run a TikTok influencer campaign alongside that new product launch. Here we're looking at off Amazon click-throughs that's coming in from TikTok directly to that product page and comparing that with sales rank. Again, we want sales rank to be lower, that means better. And you can see a direct correlation when we see that increase in overall traffic and click-throughs from TikTok. We are seeing our sales rank improve. When we see that traffic come down a bit, we are seeing that sales rank increase, therefore getting a bit worse. We eventually sold through our product much quicker than expected, but overall, this client here saw 150% increase in sales rank that we can really tie to driving that traffic from TikTok directly to Amazon. So definitely Amazon loves to give you a boost in your just overall sales rank when driving outside traffic. And with that, we're able to capture all of this great data with Amazon attribution. We can really get a lot of those main KPIs and really see that overall lift. And within Amazon attribution, we actually received a brand referral bonus. So sellers get 10% of your product sales back, which is really great if that sale comes from an offline or buyer from TikTok, wherever they may have found your product, your brand. We get 10% back. As we know, Amazon fees are always increasing, so a little bit always helps here and there.
I have actually two follow-up questions for you. Is one, do you find that most brands are doing this, or would you recommend going into Q4? Most brands would do this as like a short-term initiative, just running something for 2 weeks, or would you think that you should realistically run something more evergreen, driving to Amazon?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd say it really kind of depends what your overall strategy is and what your overall goal is and how long you want to run that. Here, I think we'd like to run it for longer. Obviously, ran out of stock a bit early, but it does kind of depend what your overall goal is and whether you want to drive that to Amazon or your .com.
Yeah, and probably like how established your brand is on Amazon and a bunch of other factors. Okay, and then the second thing I want you to talk through is like, of course, Amazon would love to get free traffic. Who wouldn't love to get free traffic? I'd love to get free traffic, but brands are much less comfortable when I've spoken with them about driving outside traffic to Amazon, right? If you had a choice and you're paying for media, I'd rather send to my own .com. I have higher profit margins. I get first-party data. There's so many better, like in my mind as a brand, factors to driving to a .com. So this isn't the first time you've heard this. How can a brand or a marketer think about the type of traffic they should send to Amazon versus their .com and the value that it might provide, I suppose?
Yeah, we get this question all the time because, as I mentioned, Amazon fees are high. Your margin is most likely higher on your D2C, so we definitely get the appeal. Before I give you a clear answer, we love to look at the data here. So we are seeing about 70% of Amazon shoppers are new to brand shoppers that have never purchased your product or interacted with your brand before, while the remaining 30% are repeat buyers. So this is a great way to look at where your shoppers actually going to convert, why are they on Amazon, and taking that into your strategy as to where to drive your traffic. As you mentioned, it's always good to take into account where the stage of your Amazon business is. If it's brand new, you may want to invest a bit more early on in driving traffic to your PDPs on Amazon, just to build those reviews and your credibility on the site. But if you're relatively established, we like to split it out into two different strategies. If your goal here is to get new to brand shoppers, that's when we really recommend continuing driving to Amazon. As I mentioned, trusted reviews, there's Prime, quick shipping, makes it that much easier to hit buy on a product you may not be super familiar with, and you have so much information right there. With that, when you're looking at just the product mix that you want to offer during this time on Amazon, really focus on driving to those first touch products, typically a bit cheaper, and just the first introduction to your brand. So that should be your focus for new to brand shoppers. And then on the flip side, if you really want to target those brand loyal customers, this is when we strongly recommend running to your D2C, but keeping in mind the product mix that you're providing here. Really focus on your more innovative, potentially higher price point, maybe exclusive products that are only on your D2C with a lot of your branded and remarketing campaigns, and that will get those conversions, hopefully a higher AOV as well from a lot more of those brand loyal customers.
That's such a good point. And you said something like consumers don't really differentiate where they're buying your product from. They know they're buying your brand. They don't care if it's Amazon, if it's social commerce, it's your .com. They want to transact with you as a brand. So how do you make it sort of as easy as possible? That's really helpful. Okay, so one of the other trends that we're seeing, and you heard this in the last session, is that consumers are obviously increasingly price sensitive. They want to cut and be stingy in some places, but they still want to splurge on themselves this holiday season. So, Ali, I wanted to ask you, can you just talk about some of the strategies that Amazon offers to allow brands and marketers to take advantage of rewards or savings that have been particularly useful?
Absolutely. With a market as saturated as Amazon, it's super important to find ways to incentivize purchases with obviously a data-driven perspective. So the two unique tactics that we wanted to touch on today are Amazon Rewarded Display, or formerly known as Amazon Moments, and then just in general, promotional strategy and testing. So with Amazon Rewarded Display, just imagine a scenario where your potential customer is browsing through their favorite app and suddenly your product pops up with, a compelling offer attached. I definitely think that that's the magic of Amazon Rewarded Display. It's all about just catching your audience's attention at just the right moment and providing them with an incentive that's just too good to resist. And akin to, I guess, like a rebate, you have the chance to offer exclusive deals, discounts, or even a special access, and all about creating a shopping experience, like you mentioned, Megan, that feels tailored just for them. I definitely think that this is extra relevant this year. Thinking back to some of the points that Monica and Corey touched on in that first session, consumers, always, but especially this year, are looking for ways to reward themselves. So I definitely feel that when shopping for others, providing a small but impactful way for the consumer to get a little reward for themselves will really go a long way. So we definitely really love that strategy. Now, talking about promotions and crafting that type of strategy and testing, as we gear up for Q4, I definitely think testing becomes your best friend. So start early, experiment with different types of promotions, such as percentage discounts, bundling offers, limited time deals. The key here is obviously to gather insights and learn what resonates best with your target audience. So we have a couple of examples here on the page. The first one on that left-hand side was us running a very short coupon. It only actually ran for about a day and a half. And we wanted to see what the halo effect on bestseller ranking would be from that lift in traffic, conversion rate, and sales that we expected to see when the coupon went live. So as Bridget already mentioned, BSR, we want that to be low. And we actually found that our bestseller ranking actually reached its best level the day or a couple days after the coupon had actually ended. And it remained stronger than what it had previously been for a few extra days. So here we definitely learned a lot about promotion timing and of course, like being super vital for all those big shopping periods in Q4. It really helped us piece together some ideas about lead-in strategies and making sure our visibility during Prime Day, Prime Early Access Sale, Black Friday, Cyber Monday are as strong as possible. Now, moving on to the right-hand side, this was a different client that we work with, and it was choosing the most effective promotion type, in this case, promo code versus coupon, and also testing the optimal discount amount that would drive the highest profitability. So we actually pretty easily found that the best performing promotion that led to an actually noteworthy increase in conversion rates and sales was the coupon. And we also at the same time found a more, I think in my opinion, important insight, which was running a more substantial discount, in this case 10% versus 5%, did not actually correlate with an increase in unit sales. So I definitely find this data point super, super insightful because, I definitely think a lot of times brands can just choose a discount amount that they think will incentivize the customer the most. But actually here we found that the 5% off versus the 10% generated a parallel increase in unit sales. So therefore we can effectively optimize our profitability by maintaining as high an average order value as possible. So we're getting that lift in conversion rate by running a discount at all, but we are remaining as high of a price point product as we possibly can. And I definitely think that that really helped shape our promotional strategy for this brand.
Is so important because I think a lot of marketers, if you work in both, .com and Amazon, you're so used to seeing your .com discounts at like 20%, 25%. You just don't have to do that for Amazon. One follow-up question I had for you is with the BSR example. You ran a promotion for about a day and a half. Is that typical? Would you recommend, or would you think that if you ran a longer promotion that you would have a longer halo effect? What does that tend to look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the answer to that is obviously test it out and see how that does for your brand, because every brand and even products within the same brands can react a little bit differently on Amazon. But I would generally say if we ran this promotion for a little bit longer, we had a tight budget on this one, so we wanted to keep it short. We would love to see that halo effect last for a longer period of time. And that's kind of why I was touching on the importance of lead-in strategy, like running something very, very small leading into Prime Day or leading into Black Friday will keep your visibility high for those specific days when everyone is actually shopping. So definitely worth testing out and being strategic with the budget that you have there, the amount of time that you're running for it, and also when you're running it.
Okay, great. Ali, I also want to talk to you about some bundling strategies. So obviously there's traditional bundling strategies, but you have been doing some really interesting things that almost like mirror subscriptions. And I think this is really interesting because it's a way that a seller can increase their AOV, but also provide really unique gifts. So can you talk a little bit about how you've been testing some of these like bundling subscription boxes, how brands could start thinking about it or testing into it?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the more recent tests that we started running are Amazon subscription boxes. So they are literally just subscription boxes. And there are two ways to kind of run this. One would be through the brand yourself. You would be in charge of packaging it together, shipping it to customers via FBM, all of that on the brand. And I think that that can be a huge benefit because you have all of your products there. And then the other way is through a managed service with Amazon. And this is actually a great way to gain visibility for some of your new products. So kind of starting with the former, I definitely think that it's awesome to run a subscription box that's specific to your own brand because you have total control over running this. You can set up how often things are being shipped out. You can really have full ownership of the product mix that's going in there. And, the thing that I love about this is you can really encapsulate your entire product line. So I definitely think that this is a really intriguing activation when considering holiday planning. These types of boxes obviously make the perfect holiday gift, and it can be a great way to expand your customer base, expand your brand loyal customer base as well. And it's a really cool way to have a high average order value or high price point with something that you're selling and create that experience for your customers. So on the other side of things, Amazon can also create subscription boxes based on your product type or your category. So, kind of looking at our screen, let's say you sell a lip balm product. So you can work with Amazon to feature your product in the Subscribe and Discover Lip Balm Club box, which is delivered to people that opt into this box, meaning that they are highly qualified to be interested in your product and hopefully like your product since they already choose to subscribe to this club. And I think that this is a super fun and unique way to create interest surrounding your products, whether it be a new product, one that you hope to gain more visibility on, building reviews. This is great to get that visibility before the holidays. And I will mention that this is a managed service through Amazon, so you'll need to work with an Amazon rep, but as direct agents is a preferred agency partner. We do have a dedicated Amazon account executive for our agency who has helped us push through these types of activations before. So definitely making sure you're working with someone who's knowledgeable about this and can get you in the right spot for these types of activations is super key here.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, that's really interesting. I know subscription boxes especially can be really fun, like holiday gifting ideas that are a little bit unique. Okay, so last thing I want to talk about is the increased competition on Amazon. So overall costs are going up. It's just being much harder to compete. And outside of, the recommendation of just spend more money, obviously there are things that brands should be doing right now just to ensure that they're better prepared, they have better brand awareness. And Bridget, can you just talk me through some of those recommendations that you would have brands implement right away so that they can have a more successful last quarter of the year?
Yeah, most definitely. We are all preparing for a very competitive holiday season, and we need to find ways to really set ourselves apart. First thing I recommend for all brands is to fully understand and highlight all of your unique selling points of your product, and then use that as your baseline for any campaign that you're running. So a great way to do this is to utilize Amazon influencers. Amazon has really heavily been investing in building out their influencer program for the past year or two, and definitely a great time to jump in and start utilizing all these different ways that you can reach influencers and hopefully new to brand customers. There's a few ways you can do this. First, you can actually be a co-sponsor of Amazon influencer events. This is a great way to gift hundreds of influencers at once, hopefully getting a ton of UGC content from that. And here at DA, we can provide any attribution links and really try and look at the data to quantify the effect of a lot of these events, and diving into the data to see the lift overall. Next is you can also work with influencers to have your product featured on unique influencer storefronts. We know shoppers trust influencers about 2 times more than the actual brand. So this is a great way to hopefully lead to a conversion from someone that they trust, and reaching, again, those new to brand customers. And then lastly, really highlighting any UGC content across, your storefront, your product page, wherever customers are looking for your brand. We know 92% of shoppers are watching online videos every day. This is how people are consuming and learning about new brands and new products. So it's really important to keep up with that trend, and utilizing influencers to do so. Again, as Ali mentioned, we do have, a partner at Amazon that can help us activate any of these influencer partnerships that you may be interested in, but our e-commerce team really specializes in the data and quantifying the impact of a lot of these influencer activations as well. I'm able to see the overall lift, but a great way to take more of an awareness tactic down the funnel, and hopefully leading to more conversions. And from that, overall, hopefully you're building up your brand loyal customers, which is the goal, and just really keeping in mind that every touch point you have with your customer needs to be a great one, keeping that idea that even from an influencer video all the way till that product reaches their doorstep and beyond, when they're interacting with your brand, it is a great customer experience, and that's how you're really gonna set yourself apart for Q4.
Yeah, and I really like this because one of the benefits of obviously everything living in Amazon is just the attribution, which sometimes influencers struggle with. So it's a fun tactic for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, and then on this next slide is just all of our key takeaways that Ali and I already chatted about, so nothing new. A good screenshot of all of our innovative strategies here. Highly recommend you start looking into these for Q4 to really, set yourself apart.
Perfect. Bridget, Ali, thank you guys so much for the time today. Okay, and for our last session, I want to welcome on Carrie and Catherine, and talk a little bit more about some new testing opportunities for holiday growth. So Carrie and Catherine, can you guys just quickly introduce yourselves for me?
Sure, I'll go first. I'm Carrie Bacon. I'm the Associate Director of SEO here at DA. And today I'm going to be talking about CRO testing that you can do now to build your conversions for the holiday season.
And I'm Catherine Grabowski. I'm Senior Creative and Content Specialist here, and I'm really excited to talk to you about influencer strategy.
Perfect. So we wanted to touch on like these two opportunities that we think brands can really lean into just in order to maximize their holiday session. Like Carrie mentioned, user experience and conversion rate optimization, and the second being influencer marketing, UGC. These are two things that we have seen consistently time and time again. Brands do not spend enough time on, despite, I think, it being relatively obvious. So I'm going to start with user experience, and then we're going to pivot to UGC. So Carrie, first of all, obviously site experience is so important, user experience is so important. This should be an overall strategic initiative for your brand. But if it's not, if it's just something where you're thinking, okay, I need to start doing something now, my conversion rate is declining, etc., most people might think now is too late to make impactful like site changes, that they don't have the time and resources. Is this a safe assumption? Should they table it until next year? Is there a way to start doing it this year? What do you feel?
Okay, so first things first, it is not too late to start testing. You should really start testing now. If you haven't done testing up to this point, then you should really start your testing now to get everything ready to go for the holiday season. That way you'll have enough time and active users to verify your results. It usually takes about 2 weeks to a month for each test in order to get enough data going. That way you have a good result and good benefits to the tests. And also there's usually a code freeze in November and December. So you're gonna wanna have all of your testing done before October. And as for resources, you have more than you think. For instance, you can look over analytics and see where people are leaving during their site visits. And this can give you an idea of where to start looking at things to test.
Okay, great. So realistically, we could probably start doing some things through the remainder of September and October. Okay, so it seems, like you said, it can be relatively easy to test. Where should brands start, right? If we realistically have 2 months to start testing, should I focus on my highest revenue pages? Should I focus on the pages with the highest drop-off? Like, how would you recommend a brand prioritize these tests, knowing that the key goal really for Q4 is conversion generation, sales generation? Where would you, if you had an e-com site, where would you start?
So I do work with a lot of e-com clients, and the place that we really like to start focusing on are the high impact areas. And this can be high traffic or low conversion areas. They could be either one to see the benefit from optimization. But usually these are your product pages, your home pages, and the checkout flow. These are your three major places that we tend to see tests that have really great differentials with the variabilities and then the controls. And then you can choose to implement those tests on those areas. And then you can make a plan. When you do these tests, don't just go in and do a test just to make a test. You want to look at your data. You want to look at what's actually going on those pages and make an informed decision. You want to know whether or not changing the images is going to do something, changing the verbiage is going to do something. Don't just go in and make a test simply to make a test.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So if we have September and October, realistically, how many tests could we or should we run before we go lock it in?
Right, like we were saying, you want to make sure that you have enough time due to enough sessions and enough visitors to the site. So I would say that realistically, you could have 2 to 3 tests before the holiday season begins. That way you have enough visitors and enough sessions and enough interactions with your website. That way you can actually understand if like say the first day you had a test that went off the charts, it may have been an anomaly. So you don't want to stop a test after just one day. And then also you'll probably put a pause on your testing at the end of October. This will be because you're getting ready to do the holiday shopping, and most of the time your web dev team will actually put a freeze on all web dev changes to the site right around the end of October, so that they're keeping up the health of the website and not doing things like tests.
Okay, that's really good to know. Can you talk through some of how quickly should brands generally see an impact of test? You said sometimes you'd run it for 2 weeks to a month because you want to make sure there's no anomalies, but should you realistically see an impact pretty quickly?
Yeah, with some of the tests that we've run, we've seen an impact almost the next day. Like there's a definitive winner/loser when it comes to our variations. But you should start to see a differentiator between the A and the B when it comes to your testing. Especially if you've already done the test and you know that in your test you had a clear and definite winner, you could definitely see a change right away when you decide to put it live on your site. If you're looking at the chart here on the left, this is something that we did for a client of ours, an e-commerce client, and we had already run the test and seen a clear winner. And as soon as we implemented the test on the site, this was the change in their conversion rate.
Okay, and I know you want to walk us through a couple of like testing examples, so let's you do that.
Great. Yeah, I do have a couple of examples on both homepage and product/category pages that could be especially beneficial for you to have ready to go before the holiday season. So these are the homepage tests that we may suggest that you run. The first one is the fear of missing out and the social trust. Make a category called bestsellers that includes, of course, your bestsellers in it. You want to be honest as well as clever. And this gives the idea of the visitor that these are items that other people are enjoying and makes me want to see what other people are enjoying as well. So not only is it showing all of your wonderful products all in one area, but it's showing the ones, it's causing a desire to see more of it. I want to be part of the cool kids and seeing what everybody else is enjoying. And so simply doing this, making a bestseller section can actually improve conversion rates for you. And then there's moving up the categories on the homepage, a scroll depth test. So move your most beneficial, the categories that you want to be seen first, up higher on the page. People only scroll so far down when they're going through a website, especially the homepage. So put your most important categories or your most beneficial categories up towards the top of the page. That way people will see them sooner and they'll go and click through to them sooner. We did this with a client and we saw the conversion rate for those category pages increase by 13% after we moved this up higher on the homepage. Another easy test to run would be making your CTAs stand out. You'd be surprised how many users on websites don't know where they're supposed to click, or they don't know if an item is clickable or where they're supposed to go when they're on a page. Sometimes they just kind of randomly click it on pictures and bolded text, but the area that you want them to click on to go to another page may not be highlighted and they may not understand that that's where they're supposed to go. And next we have product pages, product page tests that we can easily run. The item popularity, simply putting that this is a popular item and it's in other people's carts right now. We did this for a client and we saw a 5% increase in the proceed to checkout clicks. It gave that idea of, oh, I may be missing out on this and other people are enjoying it. So I should probably check out with this soon. And then, as you were mentioning earlier on, you and Corey, is the free shipping call out. 50% of respondents said they would avoid retailers that don't offer free shipping, and 78% of consumers are willing to buy more to qualify for free shipping. So if this is something that you offer, you want to call this out and you want to make it really plain and easy to see. And then last, there's the social trust review star ratings. Putting this on a category page for one of our clients increased their conversion rate for this category by 4%.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's really helpful to see. So if you're struggling with some tests that you're not sure if you want to run, some great ideas. Carrie, but can I leave you with one question, which is, what is some of the biggest mistakes that you see when you talk to brands about conversion rate optimization? What is the biggest mistake that brands are usually running into?
So the biggest mistake that most people make is wanting to do all the things all at once. They're like, well, if free shipping does well, and if making a category of bestsellers does well, and if moving things up on the site does well, let's just do them all and do it all at once. And while, theoretically, you may think that, oh, this is a great idea, when you do this, you can't see what's actually impacting the sales and the change of customer behavior, because you change so many things. It's best to take it one at a time. We'll do one variation versus your control. That way you can easily see if, say, adding free shipping to the page really does impact your conversion rates or not.
Okay, wonderful. And then I think you have some takeaways as well.
I have a quick takeaway sheet so that everybody remembers that you want to get started now. You want to focus on your high impact areas, but you want to have a plan. Don't just test for testing's sake. Choose 2 to 3 tests to run in this short amount of time, and then go ahead and implement the tests that show promise before the holiday season. Mm-hmm. You want to go ahead and put those into your web team's planning. That way they can get live before the holiday season hits.
Great, thanks so much, Carrie. So now I want to pivot a little bit to the media mix, right? And despite the fact that there is so much talk about influencer marketing and UGC, I still find that a lot of brands are not using it appropriately as a sales generation tactic. So I just want to talk about some effective ways that brands can start testing and measuring impact for Q4. So I want to start with the timing side of things, because influencers, Catherine, are not like biddable media, right? You can't just like easily turn it on and turn it off. So it does feel like a little bit of a bigger undertaking. Can you just talk about the time, if you wanted to start activating something like this for the back half of the year, that it would take to really set up, vet partnerships with influencers? What are some strategies that you found to turn it around quicker? Can you just talk through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's never too early or too late to integrate influencer into your marketing strategy. On the next slide, we have some key callouts about the effectiveness and impact of influencer. I know Bridget touched on this in the previous section, but 71% of consumers said it's important to recognize a brand before they make a purchase, and over 50% of Gen Z, just under 50% of millennials, consider influencer recommendations one of the most important factors in their purchase decision. So we know the impact and the importance of influencer, but on the next slide here, going through what does a brand need to actually activate an influencer marketing strategy? The first thing would be a product or the actual promotion or the sale that we're focusing on. The next would be the activation strategy, so the budgets or the timelines that would go into this campaign. And then finally, the brand book. So what are the do's and don'ts of this campaign, and how can we integrate that into our creator messaging? So on the next slide here, we have an example roadmap of what a campaign could look like. And Megan, as you mentioned, it is different because we're working with real creators from real people here, but we typically see a 3-week turnaround time, the first week and a half for that pre-launch strategy, and then about a week and a half to get that content live and running. And then campaign insights and tracking we see as an ongoing initiative. So that immediate impact, but then also the long-term impact that influencer has. And then when we're thinking about types of influencers, micro versus macro influencers, and the time that it takes to activate each of these, micro influencers are really great to lean into these niche audiences, but they might not have as big of a reach. But these macro influencers, it's going to be a broader audience, but again, a larger reach. These micro influencers, we can typically activate a bit more quickly because we're working directly with the influencer rather than an agent or an agency. So there's a lot more flexibility and ease of communication there. And then finally, just going into what we look for when we're selecting influencers, we have a tool that gives us access to a variety of metrics. One of those being the quality of the audience. So we all know that there's many fake accounts out there on the internet. So this is a tool that allows us to say how many of their followers are actual real people, and how engaged are they with this content. And then also brand safety metrics. Does the content align with our brand? Do we want to stay away from political content or religious content, for example? And then just getting very granular on the insights that we're able to take away. So we can look at overall engagement rate, but for instance, we could also look at what's the engagement rate for specific content themes or hashtags within that content. So all that to say is it can be a very quick turnaround and process to work with influencer marketing, and it really is never too late or too early to get started.
So question on that. So if it'll take about 3 weeks to turn something around, We recommend traditionally going with micro influencers if this isn't part of your broader strategy, if you would activate. Would it be safe to say that you could start testing then and have a campaign live like October 1, get some learnings and roll that out through November and December? Are a lot of the influencers already booked up for November and December? Like, is there an opportunity to really do some tests in October and roll out a full-scale campaign through the rest of the year?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would definitely say October 1st is more than enough time to get a campaign started. And you're absolutely right, getting it started in October so that we're able to leverage those partnerships and continue those relationships into the holiday season. But October 1st is more than enough time to get a campaign up and running.
So one of the things we were talking about in our last session on Amazon is how great Amazon influencers are because it's so attributable. And one of the challenges a lot of brands have traditionally had with influencers, especially if you're thinking about a direct response brand, is the attribution back to their sales and their sales effort. So outside of just like, using unique coupon codes or something like that, that feels very basic. Like, how should brands approach thinking about measurements?
Yeah, exactly. So there are definitely some primary metrics that if you're researching influencer marketing or already working with influencers, you're probably looking at what is the reach of the post, how many people are engaging with the content. Like you mentioned, promo codes. We have an example here of tracking how many people use this individual influencer's unique code, and then also the revenue that we generated from this campaign. But we're really taking a step back and looking holistically at how did this campaign impact our full marketing strategy. So do we see an increase in branded search volume? Have we seen an uptick in website traffic? Do we have more leads now added to our database? So more emails gathered through this influencer campaign, but it's really understanding how this influencer campaign impacted our marketing strategy on a holistic, from a holistic viewpoint rather than just on an individual content level. And on the next slide here, talking through some strategy adjustments as we're seeing increase in web traffic or increase in branded search volume, how are we pivoting and adjusting our media mix to capitalize on this and understand how we can help influencer work with the rest of our marketing strategy. But then also taking a step back, how can we amplify our influencer content that's doing really well and use this content, this UGC content, from a paid perspective. So we consistently see that UGC content typically outperforms traditional creative units and traditional forms of media. So really leveraging this creative for our paid strategy. And then finally, campaign timing. So making sure the influencer fits within the broader campaign. So if we have an upcoming sale, maybe the paid ads are highlighting the promotion and the timing of the sale, but our influencer content is providing inspiration and saying, here are my favorite products from the sale. But again, really making sure that all these pieces are working together and we're not thinking of influencer marketing as an independent campaign, but rather part of our larger marketing strategy.
Yeah, that's such a good point because influencer won't have the same like attributable ROI. You can't just log into a platform and it's like, oh, here are the view through conversions or anything like that. But you should be able to see the lift pretty easily. You can look at if it's just into your MMM, that should be relatively easy. It should be easy enough for you to say increase brand search volume and look at the total CAC and the effect that it had. And I really love their point about, influencers not just media, right? It's creative as well. And like, what's that value that you get from that creative? Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. Do you have a few, any takeaways for us as well?
Yeah, so the takeaways would be that it's never too early or too late to start influencer, and this can really be a very quick process. And then on the measurement side, we really are thinking holistically. So don't think of influencer as an independent campaign, but think of this as an always-on part of your marketing strategy, something that you should be activating now and continuing through the holiday season.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, so I want to invite all of our panelists back in. If you have any questions, please chat them to us. I already see a few coming in. So I'll wait for everybody else to join me. Okay, so the first question is on Amazon. So specifically, somebody wants to know the type of traffic that would be most effective to drive BSR. So Bridget, I think you talked a little bit specifically about TikTok, would that be the preference to use something like a TikTok or social channels or search marketing? Like what type of traffic would you recommend?
Yeah, I think it depends a bit on your product, your brand, but think about where your customers are most likely to be, what platforms typically perform best for you already, and utilize that with Amazon attribution links to drive directly to Amazon. So really depends brand to brand, but if you are performing quite well on TikTok, start testing out driving to Amazon versus your D2C, and I'm positive you'll starting to see a lift on your Amazon BSR.
Yeah, I would say the one thing would probably be like maybe shy away from like search, just given how intent driven it is and how expensive I suppose it could be. That would be the one thing I would think too.
Amazon's also winning a lot of search placements already with products, so you don't want to compete with them if they're already driving traffic for you. Making sure you have that cohesive strategy.
Great point. Okay, so this next question is, okay, we have only started doing marketing really seriously in Q4 relatively recently, so we don't have a good idea of a new customer acquisition versus retention split in Q4. What would be a safe percentage breakdown for a new brand to use? Corey, you talked about this, so I'm going to throw that one to you and hope it's not completely... I know.
No, maybe that's a good question. You said so. Can you read it back to me real quick? The beginning of it, so
yeah.
they don't.
They have never really started doing any type of Q4 holiday marketing. This is the first year that they're going heavy on it, so they don't really have a good sense of a new versus return customer splits. So if you didn't know what your new versus return customer split would be, how would you approach it?
Got it. Okay, so I think there's two ways to take this. One would be if you don't know, like if you don't have first party customer purchase data at all, then I would say you just got to do the best with what you have. And so don't overthink it. I would say if at that point it sounds like you're such a new business that your main focus maybe at this point is just scaling and purchases in general. And so thinking about retention versus acquisition maybe is a longer term strategy once you build up your first party CRM. If you have data and first party data, but it's small, I would say from there, knowing most of biddable is not static budgets, meaning these budgets can be fluid. I would just potentially random numbers, start like with 20% of your budget towards this audience, with the giant caveat that it's like that number needs to be evaluated based on what that audience size is. Even smaller audience size, less money you need. But from there, I would then keep an active eye on it. And something we actively do here all the time is keep an eye between where we're allocating our dollars based on performance and audience size. So don't think too much into it. Just trust your gut. Go with what your audience size is. That would be like the big takeaway.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think a lot of brands maybe sold in a different capacity, not D2C pre-COVID, and maybe a lot of brands are only now getting a sense of what their first party data kind of access they have and making sense of it. So it could be a situation like that. Okay, those were our two questions. I do see a few others coming through, but we are sadly out of time. If you did chat a question, we will respond to you. If you think of a question that you did not get to ask, or you think of it tonight when you are just like winding down, please feel free to email us, marketing@directagents.com. We'd be happy to get back to you. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and good luck in Q4.